We'll skip ahead to the 70s. There's a lot of research that's been going on, and it really started to take off in the 70s. There was a lot of work showing that it would help people with ADHD and also help people quit drugs like heroin and, in some cases, speed. It was also the decade where there was the first use of brain machines it started happening lots and lots in popular culture, partly due to the Dream Machine making it popular. But then in the 70s, we had technology, so we had all these mind machines coming out commercially. The first patent came out in 1974 by some trippy prof at a New York, I think it was New York City College, or was it SUNY? Anyways, he had the first patent, and that's a picture of it here. In 1974, you can see the happy face here of the person using it. And also, it's the first use of brain machines in discos. It was kind of an external brain machine. They're pulsing sound at theta and alpha and pulsing lights at those same frequencies, and people would trip out and dance all night. In the 80s, there's more medical studies, but it became way more popular in mass culture due to this guy Hutchinson reading a book called Mega Brain Power. And that book it makes a lot of claims that are pretty fascinating. Whether they're true or not, who knows? You can try it for yourself and see what you think. It's a pretty interesting book, though, to read. From anthropological perspective, for sure. So, let's see. I'm as tired as all of you people, so I have to look at my notes. One thing, too, just epileptic people and blinking lights don't go together. So, just that cautionary note. If you have ever had a seizure, you should really not use the blinking light part. But with brain machines, the blinking lights are powerful. The pulsing sound is powerful. You can use one or the other. Both are much more powerful, but it works with just the sound if you do have a problem with sensitivity to the lights. So, jump to 2007. I wrote this article for Make Magazine. And Make Magazine, I don't know if you're familiar, it's just a really cool do-it-yourself magazine, and it's just great ethos of doing stuff yourself rather than just going out and buying some ready-made thing. And ADHD, that's drawing a blank. It's when you're hyperactive. So there you go, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And for people who are truly ADHD, there's so many people who are diagnosed as ADHD who aren't. That usually it means it's really kids. Their kid is drinking too much Coca-Cola with sugar and caffeine, and they're watching too much TV, and their attention span is like nil. So, yeah, and so here we have all these people getting pumped up with drugs who really should just stop doing the drugs they're doing and do something better. But, yeah, so ADHD, don't get me going on that. And Make Magazine, anyways, I wrote this article for it, and it's the first time I used an Atmel chip. Atmel chip, microcontroller chip. It was really easy to use, and it was really just so fun to learn. I wanted to make it really simple for people to build, so I started it with a kit that already works, made by Lady Ada, also known as Limor Fried, and she has ladyada.net, really cool website full of all these projects, all of it open source. So this mini POV kit is one of her kits, and it's almost a really crude development environment for this Atmel microcontroller chip. And I love microcontrollers. You can do so much with them. Starting with basically the same hardware, you can make some, a few hardware modifications and your own firmware, and you end up with something totally different. Check out what the Mini POV does if you haven't seen it already. Where can we, I don't know, can you see this? Is it too bright? So this is the Mini POV kit if you make it on your own. If you just do what I said, a little bit of hardware modification and make some new firmware for it, you end up with something totally different, which is these. So you've probably seen that already. The article turned out to be way popular, and it also is popular at parties. This was that same party. This was a party for, I don't know if you know this really bad TV show from the United States called Magnum P.I. It was super popular and super stupid. It took place in Hawaii, thus all the Hawaiian shirts, and it took place with this actor who became super popular from it, who had a really bad 70s mustache. So everyone came with mustaches and Hawaiian shirts. I do have a lot of photos of people in this state. It's kind of interesting. The Make Brain Machine, like I said earlier, there are all these companies that have brain machines already available, but they're really expensive. And why spend all that money on something already made when you can make something really inexpensively that you make yourself and it's fun and it really works? So it's also really easy to make because Lady Ada on our website has step-by-step instructions for how to build this thing, pictures and all that stuff. It's really a cool way to start. And people here, I brought kits for people to build this and a few other projects. I brought 50 kits. I thought that would last through the end of the camp, but in fact it lasted half the camp. So people were able to build these things in about 4, 5, 6 hours, even though they had to wait for me because it was so mobbed, and it was tons of fun. I hope the people who did that had as much fun doing it as me. So anyways, brain machines are fun. As you go along the sequence in it, your visual cortex is being stimulated, and it's used to these frequencies internally, but it's not used to them coming from external. So it does what brains always do, tries to make sense out of it, and it can't. So it does what it can, which is hallucinate. It's kind of nice. So another thing, too, I've been meditating since I was 13, and I've gotten a lot of benefit from it, and it's helped me in so many ways, and I wanted to trick people into meditating, because I'm a trickster, compassionate one. In our hectic lives, we are so busy doing this, that, and the other thing, and we so often don't give ourselves time to just relax a little bit, to self-reflect, to trust what's inside of us, to not be so afraid of what's inside of us, and just see what comes up. So anyways, I hope the Brain Machine can be of benefit that way for some people. Another cool thing with this kit using the Atmel microcontroller, the Atmel microcontroller doesn't need any programmer. You just plug it into a serial port or a USB to serial converter if your computer doesn't have one, and it programs itself. And the software that's available for doing all this is open source and free. And of course, this brain machine that I did is open source hardware and software and free for anyone to use. It uses the blinking lights as well as pulsing sound. They're both in conjunction with one another. And the blinking lights are at those various brainwave frequencies that I showed you a slide of earlier. The binaural beats are more difficult to describe how to do, but they're a pretty simple concept. Beat frequencies are a physical phenomenon. If you have two frequencies that are similar but different, you hear both frequencies and you hear the difference. Brainwave frequencies are too low to hear, actually. So we can't just play the pulsing sound at a brainwave frequency. binaural beats are a good way to perceive the brainwave frequency in there, and I have a little demonstration here of binaural beats. So hopefully the sound will work. Let's try this one. This is a tone at 200 hertz. A little longer than I would like, but there it is, 200 hertz. And here's one at 211 hertz. It's a little bit different. First I'll play, this one will play 200 hertz, then 211, then both together. So did you all hear the kind of, so, you like that? So that was, that wah 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 sound was at 11 hertz because that's the difference between the two sounds. So binaural beats are very much like beat frequencies, which are a physical phenomena of the waves adding and canceling with each other before your eardrums. But binaural beats are only in your head. And it's not really known why most people, when presented with one frequency in one ear and one frequency in the other, they'll actually perceive those beats. But we just know that a majority of people do perceive that. And since your brain is actively involved in creating that perception, it's a really powerful way for more people to synchronize or entrain their brains to that external frequency. And sound and light together are even more powerful than one or the other. Now, I said before, brain waves from a human brain or a spectrum, it's more difficult for a cheap little microcontroller to do a whole spectrum than to do a simplified model. And for this thing, I just do one brainwave frequency at a time. So I can do beta, I can do alpha, or delta, or theta. Not all of them at once. No mixing of changing of amplitudes of any of them. It's just full beta, full alpha, delta, theta, one at a time. And it seems to work really well. Let's go back to here. Let me just say a little bit about that. In order to stimulate all these different parts of the spectrum of brainwave frequencies in a person's brain, going from, I want to have beta and alpha and theta and delta all together. How do I do that? Well, I start off with a brainwave sequence. You always start off where the person is, which if you're going to do meditation or falling asleep, is the person's awake. So you want to start with beta. And then start putting in some alpha, but I can't do that while that beta's playing, so I do beta for about a minute, and then suddenly alpha comes in. And that's when most people, when you've tried the brainwave machine, you go like, or wow, or holy mother. So it's interesting, and the hallucinations really take off at that point. And then I go back and forth from alpha to beta, but less beta and more alpha each time, and then quit the beta and then start doing a little theta and alpha and do that more back and forth, and more theta, less alpha, but a little bit of beta occasionally just to be sure you don't fall asleep. And then, keep doing that until you start pulsing delta and theta. And so that's really what's going on in this thing. And if you look at the open source firmware that I have online, and that's on the Make website, you'll see the table that shows the sequence. And I hope if any of you build this thing that you'll hack that sequence, because it's really fun to play with this stuff. Here's a really bad drawing that I gave to Make Magazine before they published the article, and they converted this into a really spiffy graphic. But this is kind of a block diagram of all the things that are happening, most of which I've already talked about. Brain, battery pack powers the whole thing. Speakers, LED, the graphics, of course, look cool because presentation is important. And, with the Atmel thing, this guy up here is a serial port connector. You can do anything you want with that Atmel controlled by your computer with it. It's just, I love that chip. So, a circuit board, for people who haven't played with electronics before, is a thing that everything's soldered down to. And